This was a solid transitionary chapter of One Piece that moves the plot forward and gets us a little closer to our destination. I had some thoughts about this week's chapter, so let's go over what happens. Firstly, the chapter title is An Older Woman, which is a curious title that we could theorize about after we read through it, but for now it seems like an intriguing title because it kind of sets an expectation in the reader's mind that the chapter is referring to someone specific. Particularly when you follow off of recent chapter naming conventions, usually the chapter names have set expectations as to what the chapter is about. Anyway, let's not get stuck on this curious title and instead talk about the cover story briefly, as yes, it is still going, and things seem to be going at the type of pace that would be more satisfying to read as a whole. In this cover page, Alti is angrily looking on helplessly as page 1 is tortured by Who's Who. Well, I'm a little curious where this story is going, but it really seems like it is taking its time to get wherever it's going. So, we start off with Rodo and the Straw Hats leaving the castle with the injured guard giants. Nami is angry that she didn't find any treasure, and expresses her frustration. It's tough to say if this feels in character or not. She can have her greedy moments, but to carelessly say things about her and Luffy's plans in front of the guards, well, in the end, she is saying this stuff, so whatever. Rodo is trying in vain to keep her quiet or keep the guards clueless. We cut to Frankie for the first time since he found the mural, and it appears he and Ripley are now discussing something else. They are now discussing the branches of the Atom Tree, and how each branch and village has its own history. In particular, Frankie notices a branch that had been cut off, and Ripley recounts the story of the branch being struck by lightning and catching fire. Because they could not put the fire out, they had to cut off the branch to prevent the spread of the fire. Here Ripley concludes the discussion with iterating the vulnerabilities of Elbaf, fire and lightning. Of course there's a bit there to speculate on, but I'll come back to it later. A drunken Usopp realizes Nami is back and wonders where she has been, and where Luffy and Zoro are. Nami knows, though chooses to just give a vague answer, which is apparently good enough for Usopp. He introduces Nami to Jarl, and after some back and forth, Usopp asks Jarl about his ideal woman, to which he responds that he likes older women. Usopp then slaps Jarl's sword, the one lodged in his head, and remarks that Jarl is the oldest person in the world. I'm pretty sure there are some people older than Jarl, but it's not confirmed yet. He is said to be the oldest living giant. In any case, this act of slapping Jarl's injury evidently causes great pain, and also angers Dory, who picks up Usopp and reprimands him. Then Usopp drunkenly treats the sword like it's Excalibur and needs to be pulled out. Broggy points out that Jarl would likely die of blood loss if they removed the sword. A drunken Brook comments on Usopp's drunkenness while his detachable head appears to be hanging off his hips. Nami points out that Brook is also clearly drunk. Nami sits next to Jinbei while remarking that it has been Usopp's lifelong dream to come here. I wonder if that's a translation thing because Usopp has only known about Elbaf for 2 years as far as we know, that he found out about it in Little Garden. As Jinbei comments on Usopp's enjoyment, Sanji realizes Gerd has gone. As it happens, she has been pulled aside by Rodo so she can tend to the guards from the castle. Gerd is suspicious of Rodo, who is evidently bad at hiding things. The back and forth continues to escalate until Gerd hits Rodo with her axe. Notably, Rodo in this exchange is thinking of the various things we already know about the situation at the castle. The exchange with Gerd and Rodo takes up only 2 pages, as we cut to Luffy and Zoro finding a beaten and bloodied Loki and wondering what happened. We know of course that this was the work of the Holy Knights, but Zoro and Luffy are left trying to figure out what happened. Luffy is prioritizing setting Loki free, while Zoro is prioritizing figuring out the scene. The two butt heads as Luffy thinks this is a simple matter of freeing Loki, and Zoro is adamant that they only know about Loki's reputation and that freeing him could be a very bad idea. After this exchange, Zoro kicks Loki just to see if he is actually injured. Things must be pretty serious if Zoro would resort to kicking someone instead of using swords. Luffy assumes that Loki died after he passed out from the blow that Zoro gave him. The two agree to unlock the cuffs, and while Luffy wants to go get Chopper, Zoro points out that the library is too far away. The two consider finding a doctor in the village, but acknowledge the issue that they will likely get found out if they try to get help. Luffy isn't worried though, and adds that they'll need food as well. Zoro points out the beaten up animals, but Luffy says those animals are friends and that you don't eat friends. This is consistent with the Luffy who was disappointed that he couldn't eat the animals on Ruskina, since he had made friends with them. Before Luffy can go anywhere though, the new giant warrior pirates with Sanji in tow are coming down to try and prevent Loki getting free. The hitch is though, it seems like they're going to crash. Luffy cushions their landing with Gum Gum Balloon, but they still bounce off of Luffy and get injured regardless. Harudin is insistent that Luffy shouldn't free Loki, and characterize Loki in the way we've come to expect, but Zoro notes that it is too late. The chapter ends with the large panel of Loki standing, and then some smaller panels as the warrior pirates and Luffy are shocked, and Loki grabs the nearby hammer, which Harudin calls Ragnir. So firstly, the remark about fire and lightning is interesting, because as far as known characters go, Big Mom has a history with Elbaf, and 2 of her personal homies held those abilities. Now, not saying necessarily that she will show up again, but that there is that possible connection, and it is curious since this chapter is called An Older Woman. Before I get into any more speculation on the chapter title though, I want to explore other possibilities. The obvious candidates are Sabo and Enel, given their devil fruits. We could also be dealing with some capability of either the Holy Knights or Loki himself. Whether or not this line is of any importance to the events of the current arc is something we'll have to wait and see about. Secondly, the Older Woman chapter title. It is curious if it only refers to a small moment between Usopp and Jarl, because there wasn't much else it could refer to. Are we setting up the existence of a woman older than Jarl? Is it also an acknowledgement of Gerd's role in the chapter, who is older in comparison to Sanji, for example? Well, I suppose the title doesn't really matter too much, but it can be fun to speculate on why particular titles were chosen if there is no obvious and major reason why. So this was a good chapter that moved the plot forward, and I'm not going to stay on it too much since I've been lagging behind on my channel lately and need to finish this video script before I read the next chapter. Let me know what you thought of the chapter in the comments, and here is my lyric quiz for today. Take your time, hurry up, choice is yours, don't be late.